Why are new cars getting so expensive in the US? Prices seem to be climbing fast, and it's not just because of inflation. But this time, the cause is political. Trump's decision to slap a 25% tariff on imported vehicles and car parts has shaken up the entire auto industry. But how did a trade policy promise turn into absolute chaos for car manufacturers worldwide? Let's find out. When Donald Trump returned to the presidency, he didn't waste time implementing his campaign promises. On what he dramatically called Liberation Day, April 2, 2025, he announced immediate 25% tariffs on all vehicle imports to the United States. But this wasn't just about foreign cars. Starting May 3rd, foreign car parts had faced the same crushing tariffs, affecting everything from engines and powertrains to electrical components. The numbers are shocking. Nearly 45% of all cars and light trucks sold in America come from other countries. This isn't just foreign brands like Toyota or BMW. Even General Motors, America's own car giant, gets almost half of its vehicles from overseas, mostly from Canada, Mexico, and South Korea. Last year, over 1 million cars came from Canada, 2.5 million from Mexico, 2.7 million from Japan and Korea, and 900,000 from Europe. But wait, didn't Trump already solve this trade issue during his first presidency? Here's where the story gets truly bizarre. Trump actually created this mess by destroying his own previous agreement. During Trump's first term, he negotiated the US-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA, which came into effect during Biden's early presidency. This agreement allowed free trade between the three countries with specific quotas designed to protect US assembly jobs. Car manufacturers had spent years adapting their supply chains to work within this framework, building cars with Canadian and Mexican parts in US plants, and vice versa. Trump seemed satisfied with this arrangement at the time. Now, in his second presidency, Trump has effectively torn up his own agreement. The irony is that a president is destroying his own diplomatic achievement in pursuit of an even more aggressive trade stance. What happened next was complete chaos. When reporters called car companies after the announcement, nobody could give straight answers. They had no idea how much of these new taxes they would pass on to customers. Think about what this means for a car company. Take a $100,000 Range Rover. With the tariff, it now costs $125,000. But what if the company later decides to cut its profits to bring the price down to $110,000? Everyone who paid $125,000 would watch their car lose value instantly. That's a nightmare no company wants to deal with. The complexity deepens when you examine how modern cars are actually built. The US government publishes detailed breakdowns of where car parts originate, and almost no vehicle sold in America has 100% local content. Ironically, some Japanese and Korean brands manufacturing in US plants actually have higher local content percentages than traditional American brands. BMW and Mercedes build massive numbers of SUVs in America, but they're fitted with European powertrains that would now face tariffs. The tariff calculation system adds another layer of complexity. Rather than applying tariffs each time components cross borders during manufacturing, the tax is determined once the finished car is complete. So a car built abroad but containing 20% US content faces tariffs on 80% of its price. This seemingly simple rule creates a supply chain nightmare for manufacturers trying to optimize their cost structures. If these tariffs are so disruptive, why hasn't the industry simply moved production back to America? The answer reveals just how disconnected this policy is from manufacturing reality. Disentangling global supply chains and substituting US-made parts is a process measured in months or years, not weeks. Shifting existing car assembly to US plants requires similarly lengthy timelines. As for building completely new factories, that's an endeavor requiring years of planning, permitting, construction, and equipment installation. Any manufacturer starting to explore a new US plant today, going through the entire planning, locating, building, and fitting process, would barely have cars rolling off production lines by the time Trump's current term ends. The financial burden is enormous, not just the cost of building new US facilities, but the expense of running original foreign plants at reduced capacity or shutting them down entirely. This creates a fascinating paradox in Trump's strategy. He has stated that tariffs are partly a shock tactic to accelerate trade negotiations with countries he believes maintain barriers against US goods. But if the tariffs aren't permanent, why would manufacturers invest billions in new American plants? The business case simply doesn't exist for temporary policy changes. Trump has boasted that car plants are being built at levels we've never seen, but reality tells a different story. Currently, no major new plants are under construction, just modifications to existing facilities. Only Hyundai has explicitly committed to new U.S. production because of tariffs, but details remain scarce, and much of their announced investment involves expanding existing new plants rather than building from scratch. The irony deepens when considering that Trump's predecessor, Joe Biden, also tried to shift car production to America using a different approach. Biden offered tax breaks on electric cars, but only for American-made ones. This approach contrasted sharply with Trump's tariff stick, yet both administrations recognized the same challenge. America's automotive supply chain had become thoroughly globalized. The administration eventually recognized the chaos they had created and attempted damage control. Through an executive order, Trump introduced a complex system, mixing credits with relief from other levies on parts and materials. Auto companies could now receive credits for up to 15% of the value of vehicles assembled domestically, applicable against imported parts costs. This provided breathing room to bring supply chains back home, with benefits worth about 3.75% of sticker price in the first year, 2.5% in the second year, and phasing out in the third year. The relief came with strategic exceptions. Companies building cars elsewhere and importing them would remain at a very big disadvantage. More importantly, Chinese parts would receive no relief whatsoever, continuing to face Trump's escalating tariffs of at least 145% in addition to previous duties. Major automaker CEOs praised these modifications publicly. GM's Mary Barra stated that the president's leadership was helping level the playing field for companies like GM. Ford's Jim Farley said the changes would help mitigate the impact of tariffs on automakers, suppliers, and consumers. Stellantis chairman John Elkann looked forward to continued collaboration to strengthen a competitive American auto industry. However, the uncertainty remained palpable. GM pulled its annual forecast despite reporting strong quarterly sales and profits, and unusually delayed their analyst conference call until tariff details were clarified. As KPMG's auto industry leader, Lenny LaRocca, noted, the volatility continues with the trade policy uncertainty. Tariffs can be proposed and revised on short notice. The global ripple effects have been extraordinary. Stock prices of major U.S. automakers fell across the board following tariff announcements. JLR paused all vehicle exports to the U.S. Stellantis halted production in Canada and Mexico while laying off 900 people across 5 U.S. plants. Volkswagen suspended vehicle shipments from Mexico to the U.S., with Audi suspending exports from both Europe and Mexico. Canada retaliated with its own 25% tariffs on U.S.-produced vehicles, not complying with USMCA rules, creating additional complexity for GM, Ford, and Stellantis. The Canadian government offered potential relief through remissions tied to investments in Canadian operations, adding another layer to the chess game. Europe found itself caught in the crossfire, particularly regarding steel and aluminum tariffs. Following Trump's 25% metals tariffs, steel and aluminum prices jumped dramatically, with Midwest hot-rolled coil prices up 21%. The European Commission voted to introduce trade countermeasures, meeting with automotive representatives from BMW, Volkswagen, and Stellantis to coordinate responses. The China situation escalated into a full trade war. Trump hiked Chinese tariffs to 145%, while China responded with 125% tariffs on U.S. goods. This threatened American automotive exports, as the U.S. shipped approximately $3.1 billion worth of vehicles to China in the previous year. Tesla stopped new orders in China for U.S. imported models, illustrating the immediate business impact. The uncertainty has created a domino effect throughout the industry. An alliance of U.S. auto industry groups warned that tariffs on auto parts would scramble the global automotive supply chain and set off a domino effect that will lead to higher auto prices for consumers, lower sales at dealerships, and will make servicing and repairing vehicles both more expensive and less predictable. The first quarterly GDP report covering Trump's term reflected these disruptions, showing a large drag from tariff effects, mostly from a record surge in imports as companies and consumers front-loaded purchases to beat new levies. The economy expanded at just 0.3% annualized rate from January through March, down from 2.4% in late 2024. What we're witnessing is a fundamental restructuring of global automotive supply chains, driven not by market forces or technological innovation, but by political decisions made in Washington. The full consequences remain unknown, as manufacturers, suppliers, and governments continue adapting to this new reality. This tariff war could change what cars we drive and how much we pay for them, maybe for years to come. So what do you think? Will US buyers end up with better jobs and better cars? Or just bigger price tags? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into Trump's tariff war fascinating, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more stories about the cars we drive. And while you're here, check out our previous video on the wild tales of extreme mini trucks and cars that will blow your mind with their incredible engineering and quirky designs.